Hello everyone. Let us start the next topic, that is get R limit and the set R limit function. So this is the two function that will be supported by the Unix operating system. So we know that each process is going to support the set of resource, right? So the resource can be the input devices, it can be output devices, it may be the CPU timings. So all that will be the resources, right? So each process is going to make use of these resources. Now to change the resources, to query the resources, the Unix operating system is going to support these two functions. The get R limit will be used for what purpose? This will be used for querying the resources, that is to fetch the resources. Next one, set R limit function will be used for changing the resources. For doing the modification, we are going to make use of the set R limit function. So let us see the prototype. So what are the argument it is going to take, then we are going to see what value we are going to pass for this two function. The first argument is get R limit. Int get R limit is a function. These two function will be supported in the header, that is nothing but the #include resource.h. So the #include resource.h is the header that is going to support this two function. Now the get R limit, and it is going to take the two argument. The first argument is int resource. Next one is it is going to define the structure variable, that is struct. The structure name is R limit and the variable, the pointer variable is *RLPTR. Now the next one is set R limit. It is going to take again two argument. One is int resources. The resources, both the resources are same. The both is going to take the values, and the structure name is R limit and the pointer variable is *RLPTR. So this is the two function the Unix operating system is going to support for querying and changing the resources. Now the first argument, what it is going to take? It is going to take the single resources list. So next we will see what are the resources. Before that we are going to study the second parameter, that is struct R limit *RLPTR. Now the structure and its name is R limit, and it is going to take the two structure variable. The R limit underscore T is what? It is a return data type, that is the special data type the Unix operating system is going to support, that is R limit underscore T. Name of the variable is R limit underscore current. Now this variable is going to hold the soft limit. What it is? It is a soft limit. We can say that it is going to hold the current value, the current value of the resources. Next one, the variable is the R limit underscore T, R limit underscore max, that is nothing but the odd limit. So that is going to hold the maximum resources. It is going to hold the maximum resources. These are the two values the structure R limit is going to hold. Now the R limit is going to take the soft limit, that is what is the current value. R limit max is nothing but the hard limit, and its value it is going to take is maximum value. That is, it is going to have the three important rule. The first rule should be the soft limit. Whatever the soft limit you are going to give, that is the current value should always be less than or equal to the hard limit. Is always less than or equal to the hard limit. Now the second rule is the hard limit value you can change. The soft limit value you can change with the less than or equal to hard limit. Now the hard limit will be set by the Unix operating system, that is kernel. The hard limit value it is going to change, it should be greater than or equal to the soft limit. greater than or equal to the soft limit. The value it has to change is should be greater than or equal to the soft limit. And the third rule is this hard link is going to be changed only by whom? Only by the super user. One who has the all the privileges, that person is going to change the hard limit. The ordinary user cannot be changed though the hard limit. So this is the three important rule we have to make use while changing or while modifying the resources which is already available. So this is about the get R limit, set R limit, the second parameter. Now let us see the first parameter, what value it is going to take. The first parameter is resources, and it is going to list out all the resources and its description. Let us see the resources and its description one by one. The first parameter for the get R limit and the set R limit is resources. Now let us see what are the values it is going to take. First one, R limit underscore CPU. So it is going to tell the maximum number of the time the CPU per second. That is maximum time the CPU is going to take per second. So this is what the R limit CPU. Next one, R limit data. So the R limit data is going to take the maximum number of the size. The maximum number of the size the data segment is. So we know that what the data segment is going to hold. So it is going to hold the initialized and the uninitialized data, right? So that is what is the maximum size of data it is going to hold. That is going to define in the R limit underscore data. The third one is R limit underscore F size. So this is going to hold the maximum number of the file size. The maximum number of the file size. So how many bytes of data you are going to store it in a file, that is going to return with the R limit underscore F size. Next one is R limit locks. The R limit locks is going to hold the maximum number of the locks the process is going to hold. The next one is R limit memlock. That is going to hold the maximum number of the memory, which is going to be occupied by the process by using the lock. Next one, number of the file, that is the maximum number of the file the process can open will be represented by using R limit no file. Next one is R limit stack. The R limit stack is going to hold the maximum number of the bytes, the stack is going to hold. That is nothing but R limit stack. So these are the resources, and also we are having few more resources that is going to be described with this table and the list of resources and its description. So this is about the first parameter of two function, get R limit and set R limit. So let us see with the simple program how the get R limit and the set R limit function is going to work. Let me explain the simple program how the get R limit and set R limit is going to work. So the first one, hash define doit name. So this is what? This is nothing but the macro we are going to use. The macro name is doit and the parameter it is going to take is name. So within the macros we are going to define the one more function, that is PR limits. The first one it is going to take the name of the resource. Next one is nothing but the resource. So this is what the PR limits. Let us start with the main, the int main. Next statement is if def, that is I am going to make use of the conditional statement R limit CPU. So what is this R limit CPU? That is nothing but the maximum time the CPU per second, right? So this is what the R limit CPU is. Now if R limit CPU, then do it R limit CPU. I am calling the macro, right? The control will be goes to where? The control will be go for the do it name. So what is the name of the resources? That is R limit CPU. Now the R limit CPU do it name. So next statement is in the macro PR limit. The control will becomes to the PR limits. It is going to takes the two argument, the name and the resources. Next after that I am going to define the structure variable, that is limit. Now struct, we know that in the struct R limit we are having the two important variable. One is the current and the second one is nothing but the maximum. So R limit current is going to give the soft limit, and the second one, the R limit, the max is going to gives the hard limits, right? So we know that what is the difference between the hard limit and the soft limit. Soft limit value should be less than or equal to the hard limit, right? The second one is the hard limit value should always be greater than or equal to soft limit. This hard limit is going to be increased or decreased only by the super user, right? So now we are going to define the variable for the structure R limit. If get R limit, so for what purpose we are going to use the get R limit function? The get R limit function will be used for querying the information, that is to fetch the information about the resources. It is going to takes the two argument, that is the first one is the resources, second one is the name of the structure, that is the R limit structure, that is structure variable. The second argument is the structure variable ampersand limit. So next, if it is less than 0, so the whatever the get limit is going to be less than 0, it is going to return both the get R limit function and the set R limit function is going to return the value 0 if it is okay. So if it is not going to okay, then it is going to return the non-zero values. Now the get R limit value, if it is less than 0, then it is going to display the error message for the user by using the error sys function, that is error. So if it is not, it is going to display the name of the resources, right? So that is and percentage s and the name of the resources it is going to display. So let us move on to the next statement, that is if R limit dot R limit underscore current. So we know that the structure R limit is going to takes the two data type, two data members. One is the R limit current and the another one is R limit max. The R limit current is nothing but what? It is nothing but the soft limit, right? The soft limit. What is the R limit max? It is nothing but the hard limit. What it is? Hard limit. Now limit, the structure name, the limit R dot the data member R limit underscore current is equal to R limit infinity. So the R limit infinity is the one more important variable that is going to hold the some constant. So if it is equal to infinity, it is going to display the message infinity. So else it is going to display the limit, that is the integer value it is going to return percentage d the limits dot the R limit current. Suppose for example take the R limit CPU value will be 1024, that is the maximum time it is going to take is 1024 and the per the second for the execution of a command, right? Let us see how this function is going to work with the simple example. See, the R limit current value is 814. Now if 814 is equal to infinity, no. Now if it is infinity, then it is going to display it is infinity. Otherwise it is going to print the integer value, that is the current value. So what is the current value for the current limit? That is 814 it is going to display. The maximum number of the CPU time is how much? That is 1024. Now it is going to takes only the 814. So now it satisfies the first rule, the soft the soft limit value should be less than or equal to the hard limit. Now let us see the limit dot r limit maximum, that is the maximum. What is the maximum value? Suppose for example it is going to take the 1024, the maximum value is 1024. If it is 1024 is equal to infinity, then it is going to display the error message, that is infinity. Else it is going to display the percentage d, the limit r limit max. So what is that r limit max is 1024 value it is going to display, that is the hard limit value is 1024. This value should always greater than or equal to the soft limit. Yes sir, right? So the 1024 is greater than the 814. So this is the second rule. The third rule is the value what you are going to use, that is r limit max, that should be going to change only by the super user. This is how the get r limit and the set r limit function is going to work. Let's see the if define r limit underscore CPU, right? So I took the r limit underscore CPU. So instead of CPU, you can specify the data also. You can specify all, you can specify the data, you can specify the stack, or the resource you can specify. Within this, do it, just make use of r limit data. Now it is going to pass the which limit, that is r limit data. Now the r limit data is nothing but the maximum number of the bytes the data is going to store it in a data segment, right? So that is going to be passed as an argument for the do it macro. The control will comes to the PR limit and it is going to keep on executing the what is the value for this and how to set the values for the r limit data by using the r limit current and the r limit max. So this is about the get r limit and the set r limit function, how it is going to work. Let us start with the second chapter, third module, that is process control. So in this chapter we are going to study how the Unix operating system is going to support the process creation, how the program is going to be executed, so how the process is going to be terminated, right? So next after that we are going to study set of APIs that will be supported for the process. So suppose for example the fork command will be used, the fork system call will be used for creating the process. So likewise we are having the set of APIs like waitd, exit, fork command. All that APIs we are going to study one by one with the simple program. Next after that we are going to study the different types of the identification number, that is UID, GID, real user ID, real group ID, effective user ID, effective group ID. So next last topic we are going to study the process accounting. Now we are going to start with the first topic, that is the process identifier. So as the name says that each process is going to hold the unique identification number. So that we are going to call it as a identifier, the process identifier. So now we know that each and every process is going to be created when the program under execution, right? So the process is going to be created by the operating system. So it have the two different types of process. One is the kernel process and the another one is user process. When the program, consider with the diagram, the program, when the kernel is going to execute this program, it is going to create the two set of the process, that is the process will be supported by the kernel and the process will be supported by the user. So two type of process it is going to create when the program under execution, right? So each process what it is going to create have the unique identification number. So this number should not be duplicate one. This process identifier can be reused. Suppose for example consider the hash include stdio.h. Then I am going to write the main, within that I am going to specify the printf statement allow, then close the main. Now consider this is a simple program. For this program I want to execute. So when I am going to execute this program, the internally the kernel is going to create the set of process, right? So that process is going to make use of the identification number to identify the each and every process. This identification, suppose for example the control will be given to the kernel. The kernel is going to create the process P1 and the P2 for execution of this program. Now P1 is going to have the identification number 102 and the P2 is have the identification number 204. So this is the two process it and its corresponding identification number. So after executing this program, the process is going to be deleted, right? The process is going to be deleted and this unique identification number, that is 102, can be reused by the another process. So how it is going to be reused? So that all the identification number will be maintained in the kernel. The kernel is going to maintain the list of identification number for the process. Once the process is going to terminate it, that process ID will be assigned to the other process. That is nothing but the reused. So the reused is going to be delay. So after terminating, immediate termination, the process is not going to assign that same ID for the next process. It is going to assign the old one, then it is going to make use of the released one. So next one, the process ID, right? So we are having the three important process ID that cannot be used by the user. Process ID 0 will be used by the kernel. So for what purpose? For the swapper purpose. So what is that swapper? Is nothing but scheduling. So we know that in the operating system we are going to perform the scheduling, that is CPU scheduling, first come first serve, right? So we are having the different process. This process is going to be executed one by one by the CPU, right? So for choosing the process from the process pool, it is going to maintain it is going to execute the set of scheduling algorithm. So the algorithm can be FIFO algorithm, that is first in first out, shortest job first, priority based. Based on that algorithm, it is going to select the process and that process is going to be executed by the CPU, right? So that scheduling algorithm, it is going to maintain by the kernel, that we are going to call it as a swapper. Now that value, the process is going to be created for doing this operation. For that the process ID will be 0. So this ID cannot be used by the user. Next one is the process ID is 1. So this process ID 1 will be used initially by the INIT process. So INIT process, when the kernel is going to bootstrap, when the kernel is going to be bootstrap the operating system, so after that it is going to create the one more process. That process name is INIT process. This process is going to take care of all the program execution, right? The program execution, the program termination, the process creation, all that will be going to taken care by the INIT process. So this identification number for this process is 1. Next one, the 2, the process ID is 2, that indicate that this process ID is going to be used for the paging in virtual memory. We have studied the paging concept in operating system, right? So how the paging is going to be allocated, that is how the page is going to be maintained in the memory. So which page has to be replaced. So if the page is already there in the table, then no need of replacing. So if it is not there, it has to replace, right? So for that also we are going to follow the algorithms for page replacement. That process is going to be handled. The paging operation is going to be handled by the process, that is the process ID is 2. So all this process is going to be maintained by where? By the kernel 0, 1, 2. So this cannot be used by the user. So this is about the process identifier, the unique name, and it can be reused, and the process ID, what are the predefined IDs is there. Now let us see the functions, how to get the process ID, how to set the process ID, how to get the UID, GID. Let us see the prototype. In addition to the process identifier, we are having the few more function that is going to be supported for the identifier, to get the identifier. Hash include uni_std.h, this is the header which is going to support all these function. The first function is PID_T is the return type, and the next get PID. So the get PID will be used for taking the process ID, that is identification number. To get the process identification number, we are going to make use of get PID function. To get the parent process identification, to get the parent process identification number, we are going to make use of get PID. So the parent, P indicate parent. Next one, UID_T to get the user identification number. To get the user identification number, that is UID, we are going to make use of the get UID. To get the effective user ID, what it is? Effective user ID, we are going to make use of get EID function. To get the group ID, we are going to make use of the get group ID function. Last one is UID_T get EID. What is this? E indicate effective group ID. These are the function we are going to make use for getting the identification number for the process, for the parent process, for the user, for the effective user, for the group, for the effective group. So let us see the next topic, that is fork API. Let us study the next topic, that is fork function. The fork function will be used for creating a process. The existing process can create the one more process, that we are going to call it as a child process. The existing one we are going to call it as a parent process, and if the parent process, the already existing process is going to create the one more process, it is going to make use of the fork function. Now it is going to create the child process. For this purpose, we are going to make use of the fork function. Let us see the syntax. Hash include uni_std.h header. This is the header where we are the fork function definition is written. Now the PID_T is the return type, and the function name fork, and it is not going to take any parameter, but it is going to return a value. So it is going to return a value, the 0 and PID, that is process identification number. So next one, it is going to return -1. So 0 indicate it is going to return the two values, right? So two values, 0 PID if it is success. So if it is unsuccessful, it is going to return the value -1. So it is going to return the two values if it is success, right? So that is 0 and the PID. The 0 value is going to be returned for the child process. Suppose for example, the child is going to create the process, then it is going to return the value 0 for the child process. Why? Because the child is going to have the only single parent, right? So that's why it is going to return the value 0. Next, after that, it is going to return the process identification number for which one? For the parent. So instead of 0, it is going to return the value PID. So why the PID it is going to return? Because the parent is having the more child, right? So in that cases, the PID is going to be written for the parent. Suppose for example, the child 1 is going to have some identification number, the child 2 is having some other name, right? So this is what? This is the process identification number for the child 1 and the child 2. So this value it is going to return for the parent, so for the PID. So these are the two values it is going to return, 0 and the PID. Next, if it is unsuccessful, it is going to return the value -1. This is how the fork command is going to work. Now let us see how it is going to be used with the simple program. Let us see how the fork command is going to work with a simple program. So fork function, we are going to declare the global variable and its value I am assigned, that is 6. Next one, buffer, the buffer value I assigned that A return to standard output. Next, after that, we are going to start the execution with the main int var, two variable I am declaring, that is the var, and the another one is the PID, that is nothing but process ID. For the var, I am assigning the value 88. Now I am going to write the data to the standard output, that is write standard output. So what data I likes to write? That is buffer. So what is there in the buffer? A write to the standard output. This is the data what I am going to write it to the standard output. Next one, so how much size the buffer, that we are going to specify by using size of function. Next, the -1 indicate that the terminate the null value. So instead of size of, you can make use of the strlen function, right? The strlen function we can make use, that is going to calls the library and it is going to execute the strlen and it is consumes more time. So instead of that, I am going to make use of size of and I am directly gives the input buffer, it is going to return the size of the buffer, right? So this is what I am going to return the value to the standard output. If it is not equal to 0, then the error it is going to display, otherwise it is going to write the data to the standard output. So next one, before fork command, what happens here? The PID, I am going to call the fork function if it is less than 0. So if it is going to return the three values, one is 0 and another one is PID and another one is -1. So this value it is going to return if it is okay. If it is not okay, then it is going to return the value -1. So if it is less than 0, indicate that it is a negative value, it is going to display the error message for the user. So else if the PID value is equal to 0, then it is going to returning to the which one? It is going to returning to the child, right? If the value is 0, it is going to tells that the child process is created, and for the child process it is going to increment the global value. What is the global value? Initially it was 6, now it is going to change to 7, right? So next one, it is also going to increment the var value. What was the var value? 88, right? So now it is going to change to which one? That is 89. Now after that, so what it is going to do? So it is going to execute the else part and else if part, and directly it will comes to here. It is going to execute this statement. So let us see what is the output I am going to get for this program. See, after this I am going to get the first line, that is A write to standard output. So next, before fork command, so what is the output I am going to get? Now the child is executed. Now after executing the child, it is going to come out from the if statement. It will comes to printf statement. It is going to display the PID is equal to some value. Next one, the global value. What is the global value? The child incremented that global value, that will become 7. Next one is var. What is the var value? That is 89. So this is the value it is going to display, the child process. Now suppose for example the sleep, see here the else part we did the sleep of 2. This indicate that I am making the parent process to sleep for the 2 minutes. So now after wake up, after the parent is going to wake up, so it is going to come out from the if statement. Again it is going to display the printf statement. So what is the printf statement? I am going to get the PID of which one? The PID of the parent child, the parent one. Next after that, what is the global value? Whether it is incremented, the parent process, no, right? The value will be 6, and though the value of var is how much? 88. So this is the output I am going to get. So if I am going to display the output in the standard output, that is monitor. So next let us see though how to run the same program by redirecting to the another file, temp.out. So the output, whatever the output I got, that I am going to redirect to the one more file, that is temp.out. When you are going to open this temp.out, how to open? By using cat command, make use of the file name temp.out. It is going to display the output. See here, the write to the standard output. Now the output we are going to get is before fork, it is going to display the statement twice. See here, the statement it is going to display twice. The PID for 313 global variable, then after that 6 var 89. Likewise it is going to display twice. Why? Because the first time when you are going to display the output in a standard output, that is monitor, so it is not going to make use of the standard flush, that is the buffer is not going to be flushed. So that's why it is going to display the first, when we are going to run, it is going to display only one copy. But when you are going to redirect to the some other file, so it is going to make use of buffer and it is going to display the output twice. So this is what the difference between the first one, the second one. So this is about how the fork command is going to be executed, right? So how the value it is going to return. So this is about the fork API. Thank you.